The specimen table groaned under the weight. Not metaphorically, actually groaned. The reinforced titanium alloy bending at angles that should have been physically impossible. Dr. Krelvin stood frozen, his three eye stalks twitching in different directions, a biological response his species exhibited when confronted with data that made absolutely zero sense. "Run it again," he said, his translator crackling with static from the strain in his voice. His assistant, a young researcher named Tippy from the outer colonies, adjusted her sensor array for the fourth time. "Doctor, I've calibrated this equipment twice. The readings are accurate." "They can't be accurate." Krelvin slapped one of his appendages against the console, immediately regretting it. Pain receptors weren't his strong suit. Nothing from a Class 3 world should weigh this much. Nothing biological, anyway. The skeleton laid out before them belonged to what the locals called a human. Male. Adult. Approximately 30 cycles old, according to bone density scans. Recovered from a crashed exploration vessel near the Andromeda trading routes. Dead, thankfully. Krelvin had read the reports. Had dismissed them, actually, as exaggeration and frontier nonsense. The galaxy was full of stories about the newcomers called humans. Aggressive, reckless, impossibly durable. He had filed those reports under species hysteria and moved on with his work. Now he was staring at evidence that maybe, just maybe, the hysteria was justified. The skeletal structure alone weighs 42 kilograms, Tippy read from her datapad, her voice climbing higher with each word. That's without organs, without muscle tissue, without any soft tissue components. Just bones, doctor. Just the frame. Krelvin felt his secondary stomach lurch. His own skeleton weighed maybe 3 kilograms. He was considered robust for his species. "What's the bone density?" he asked, already dreading the answer. Tippy hesitated. Actually hesitated. In the 3 years she'd worked in this laboratory, he had never seen her pause before delivering data. "Doctor, the density measurements are reading at 1,500 kilograms per cubic meter." The room went very, very quiet. "That's impossible." "I know. That's denser than most construction materials." "I know. Their bones are essentially organic metal." "I know." Tippy's voice cracked, her usual composure shattering. "And that's not even the strangest part. Look at the structural redundancies." She pulled up a holographic display, highlighting the skeletal system in glowing blue. Krelvin leaned closer, his eye stalks extending to their maximum length. "See here, the rib cage. It's not just protective plating like most species. These bones are curved, overlapped, designed to flex under impact and redistribute force. And here, the spine. 33 individual segments, each cushioned with organic shock absorbers. This species is built to take damage." "They're mobile armor," Krelvin whispered. "Gets better," Tippy said, and her tone suggested it absolutely did not get better. "I ran a metallurgical scan on the bone composition. There are trace amounts of calcium, yes, but also phosphorus, magnesium, and, doctor, there are small quantities of metals that shouldn't be biologically integrated. Their bones are composite materials. Natural composites." Krelvin's mind raced through the implications. A species that evolved on a high-gravity world would need denser bones to support its mass. That much made sense. But this was engineering. This was as if natural selection had looked at the human blueprint and said, "Let's make them weapons." "What was the gravity on their homeworld?" he asked. Tippy consulted her database. 9.8 meters per second squared. That's nearly double standard, which explains the density. "But doctor, I pulled the autopsy report from the crash. Do you want to know what killed this individual?" Krelvin wasn't sure he did. He nodded anyway. "Rapid decompression and extreme thermal exposure. This human survived the initial impact. The ship's hull breached, temperatures dropped to minus 100 degrees, atmosphere vented into space. And according to the recorder, this individual lived for almost 3 minutes. 3 minutes. In hard vacuum." Krelvin felt his legs weaken. His species would have died in seconds. "There's more," Tippy continued, apparently determined to dismantle every assumption Krelvin had about biological limits. "I found microfractures throughout the skeleton. Old ones. Healed ones. This individual had broken bones at least 7 times during his life, and every fracture regenerated stronger than the original structure." "They heal stronger?" Krelvin's voice was barely audible. "Adaptive reinforcement. The body detects structural weakness and overcompensates during regeneration. Silence settled over the laboratory again, broken only by the low hum of analysis equipment and the distant murmur of station life beyond the walls. Krelvin stared at the skeleton, trying, and failing, to reconcile what he was seeing with everything he knew about biology, evolution, and the limits of organic life. Then a horrible thought occurred to him. Tippy. Yes, doctor? This is just one human, correct? This level of durability, it's not an anomaly, not a mutation. Tippy checked her records, then looked up at him with wide, terrified eyes. According to the Galactic Census, Doctor, there are approximately 8 billion humans on their homeworld alone. She swallowed. And they're expanding. 3 cycles later, Krelvin found himself presenting his findings to the Galactic Biological Standards Committee, a gathering of the most distinguished xenobiologists in known space. Distinguished usually meant old, skeptical, and extremely difficult to impress. Today, they looked terrified. Let me ensure I understand this correctly. Senior Administrator Vosh wheezed through his breathing apparatus. His species had evolved in methane-rich atmospheres, and the oxygen-heavy council chamber always made him irritable. You're claiming this species possesses internal skeletal frameworks denser than military-grade hull plating? Not claiming, Krelvin corrected, activating the central holographic display. Confirming, with documented evidence. Counselor Merrick's, a floating gas entity contained within a pressure suit, pulsed an angry shade of orange. This is absurd. No biological organism could evolve such extreme physical characteristics without catastrophic energy demands. The caloric intake alone would be unsustainable. Tippy, who had insisted on accompanying Krelvin despite his objections, stepped forward. Which brings us to our secondary findings. Human digestive systems are horrifyingly efficient. They can process an enormous range of organic and semi-organic materials. Our records show they regularly consume toxins for recreation. Recreation? Vosh leaned forward, his breathing apparatus hissing. Yes, Administrator. Substances such as ethanol, caffeine, and capsaicin. Compounds that would shut down neural systems in most species. Humans ingest them voluntarily. For pleasure. The chamber erupted in alarm chittering, clicking, and various other sounds of biological distress. Krelvin raised an appendage for silence. If I may continue, we conducted additional research into human physiology using their own medical databases. With permission, of course. That was partially true. Tippy had hacked the systems, but the humans hadn't explicitly denied access, which technically counted. What we discovered is that humans possess a crisis response mechanism they call adrenaline. When threatened, their bodies flood with chemical compounds that temporarily increase strength, suppress pain receptors, and accelerate reaction times. In short, they become more dangerous when injured. That violates every principle of survival biology. Merrick sputtered, shifting to a distressed purple. Wounded organisms weaken. That's basic evolutionary logic. Not for humans, Tippy said, unable to suppress her fascination. They have redundant organ systems. 2 lungs, 2 kidneys. They can survive with major portions of their biology destroyed or removed. We found cases of humans functioning with 50% cardiac capacity, partial brain damage, missing limbs. There is even a documented incident of a human female giving birth during a major cardiovascular event. Giving birth, Vosh wheezed. While dying, Krelvin confirmed. Both parent and offspring survived. Which brings me to our most alarming discovery. He adjusted the hologram, displaying genetic sequencing data. Human reproduction rates are exceptionally high. Gestation lasts only 9 standard months. Sexual maturity is reached in approximately 14 cycles, and they can reproduce across nearly their entire adult lifespan, which averages 70 to 80 cycles. The silence that followed was heavy and deeply uncomfortable. Counselor Jex, silent until now, finally spoke. His species communicated through bioluminescent patterns, translated into a calm, precise voice. You are describing an apex predator species with rapid reproduction, extreme durability, and aggressive expansion potential. This sounds less like biology and more like a threat assessment. I prefer the term highly concerning data, Krelvin replied diplomatically. How did they achieve spaceflight? Vosh demanded. High-gravity worlds should inhibit technological advancement. The energy requirements alone should make orbital insertion impossible. Tippy laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound that caused several delegates to recoil. Administrator, they strapped themselves to controlled explosions. Chemical rockets with failure rates that would violate every galactic safety regulation. They understood the risks. They launched anyway, repeatedly. When crews died, they built larger rockets. That's insane, Merrick's whispered. That's humanity, Krelvin agreed. Every safety protocol we consider fundamental, they view as optional. Every risk assessment we debate for cycles, they decide individually. They even have a phrase in their dominant languages. Roughly translated, hold my beverage and observe this. What does that mean? Vosh asked. It means they are about to do something catastrophically stupid and want witnesses. The chamber descended into chaos. Arguments erupted in 17 languages. Emergency motions were proposed and immediately rejected. Several delegates demanded military consultation. Krelvin waited for the panic to subside, then activated the final data file. Honored council members, there is one more matter you should be aware of. The hologram shifted, displaying diplomatic correspondence. The humans have formally petitioned for Galactic Federation membership. Absolutely not. Vosh slammed his appendages against the desk. We cannot allow a species of armored maniacs in a civilized space. Technically, Tippy added helpfully, they're already in civilized space. They've established colonies on 47 worlds, trade agreements with 6 species, and, according to these records, they single-handedly dismantled pirate operations in the outer terminus. How? Jex asked, his patterns flickering. By being more aggressive than the pirates. When human trade routes are threatened, they don't negotiate. They don't file complaints. They arrive with warships and ask if you'd like to reconsider your life choices. Krelvin watched the realization spread across the chamber, the same conclusion he had reached 3 cycles earlier. Humanity was not asking permission to join galactic civilization. They were announcing their arrival, politely. Recommendation? Vosh asked at last, exhausted. Krelvin straightened, all 3 eye stalks fixed forward. Accept their petition. Establish diplomatic relations. And whatever you do, do not make them angry. And if they become hostile? Merrick asked softly. Krelvin thought of the skeleton in his laboratory. Bones that rivaled starship hulls. A species that considered surviving hard vacuum for 3 minutes an acceptable outcome. Then, he said slowly, we should hope they're in a forgiving mood. The council voted. Unanimously. Some decisions, after all, made themselves. If this story entertained or taught you something, please like and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us grow and bring you more stories like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next story.